Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on pharmaceutical traceability in action from Türkiye's experience to Africa's future. I'm Anna, and I'm delighted to speak on behalf of the AfriSummit team. For those that may be new, AfriSummit is a premier and influential gathering for pharmaceutical, regulatory, and industry professionals that are committed to strengthening Africa's health ecosystem through knowledge exchange, collaboration, and innovation. Today, we're thrilled to be hosting the webinar in collaboration with VISIOTT TPS, whose continued partnerships helps us deliver high-impact content throughout the AfriSummit experience. So to see more about AfriSummit, please take a short look at the video we have prepared. Now to steer our conversation, please join me in welcoming Berkay Gülşen, who will start our round of introduction, lead us through this dialogue, as well as invite your input and questions from our chat, but most importantly, engage with our experts. So the floor is yours, Berkay. Please go on.
Okay, thank you for the introduction firstly, and good afternoon everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Track and trace in Africa, lessons from Turkey and global standards for safer medicines. And my name is Berkay Gülşen, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. I hope it will be beneficial for everyone who has joined, and we are very pleased to be joined to organizations deeply involved in this field. GS1, the global leader in supply chain standards, supporting regulators and industries in building traceability frameworks. And of course, VISIOTT is a Turkish company specializing in track and trace technology and implementation across multiple countries. Today, our speakers are Dr. Nuran Idris, Manager Healthcare, Africa GS1 Global Office, Tutku Kazan, Marketing Director at VISIOTT TPS, and lastly, Emrah, International Trade and Marketing Specialist at VISIOTT TPS. And in today's session, we will cover the current state of traceability regulation in Africa, lessons learned from the Turkey's national implementation of its ITS, and how to implement track and trace systems at the factory level. And of course, we will finish this webinar with a live question and answer. Let's begin by hearing from Dr. Nuran Idris to understand just one's work across Africa and the current landscape of traceability efforts. So the first question is for Dr. Nuran Idris, and what is the current level of the regulations regarding track and trace systems in Africa?
Thank you, Berkay, for the question, and hello, everybody. So just to correct slightly, I'm not a doctor, not yet, unless somebody's willing to offer that to me. So just Nuran is fine. So thank you for that initial question. So where we are right now in terms of regulations around Africa, I mean, I would say the number is growing, and it's growing at a faster pace than before. As we speak, we have close to, well, not quite over, but close to 10 countries around Africa that have a regulation specifically for traceability, and these have been published by the regulatory authorities, with their most recent one being from South Africa. If you have not heard, we just published, I think, about a week or two ago. their regulation, which have been out for public comments for a bit. So what is the status? The status is rapidly evolving. It's rapidly changing. Even though, like I said, the number of countries that have a regulation is, I would say, less than 10. The number of countries that are actively talking about having a regulation, the number of countries that have a draft regulation that is still undergoing internal processes, the number of regulators that are still trying to figure out how do we do this, it's growing by the day. Where we were, let's say 5 years ago, and now I would say the situation is very, very different. Now we have more awareness, and I think that is the most initial component for traceability, for regulation, for any action really, is to have folks that are aware. And there's, I think, in my opinion and experience, a little bit more awareness than there was just 5 years ago. Yeah, so that is ongoing. So furthermore on that, having a regulation, obviously, it's one important piece, right? You have to have a regulation to say this is how we want to run a track and trace system. This is how we want you as suppliers to report information to us. This is how we want the government entity 1 to do X, Y, and Z, entity 2 to do, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what is included in the regulation. But then moving past the regulation and then actually implementing it is also quite an interesting component. And that's where we're seeing right now a number of countries that are moving very fast from just passing regulation to actually doing implementations. The one that comes to mind very quickly is Nigeria, for instance, which has been very steadily going ahead on their implementation of traceability in a phased approach. Because again, it's a very new space that is still very much evolving. Many of the, like Nigeria specifically, approach has been to start with a small set of products and then to add in an incremental manner as they are learning, as they are adjusting their processes, as they are making the necessary investments, etc. And then lastly, I know it's a very loaded response to a very simple question. I should also mention the initiatives of such organizations as UNICEF that is going around and implementing solutions such as the traceability and verification system that is shortened TRVST, pronounced trust. So that one is really out there as a tool for countries who are just trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this traceability thing? So it's really helping with awareness. So just by conclusion to this initial question, there has been a lot of action from multiple stakeholders, from the governments themselves, from the supporting partners, for implementing partners and supporting organizations such as UNICEF in really trying to have a bit more of awareness on traceability, on track and trace. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you for detailed answer actually. And the second question, my second question is that what is the importance of track and trace systems for healthcare safety in Africa? Actually, you already gave an answer, but maybe you can
I can
give
definitely
a little bit.
So the track and trace is it's a growing important tool for countries today around Africa and of course around the world, as a key important enabler. And I'm saying not the entire solution, but as an enabler, as part of many other things that the country is doing that will help address the challenge of some substandard and falsified medicines, right? So this substandard and falsified medicines is a global problem, not only in Africa, it's there everywhere. And track and trace is one of the solutions, not the only one, not 50% of the solution, clearly, definitely not, but an important building block, because the track and trace, the idea again is to be able to track the products as it's moving throughout the supply chain up until the time it gets to the patient. The patient should then be able to, in a best case scenario, look at a product and say, this one was handled by people 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in these different locations, in these different regions, in different countries, it came by bus, it came by motorbike, or even by donkey, but whatever it is, that to be able to have that full visibility, full trace of where the product was. So it is growing in importance as that, and of course it also has a numerous of other benefits, but that's the one that's very critical that I would say is coming to mind right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Nuran. I'm sorry for you. I already said almost once more again, doctor, but okay, I can say this. Okay, for the comprehensive overview of the regulatory landscape in Africa and the role GS1 plays in supporting traceable implementation across the continent. But now we would like to shift our focus to a real world case, how a national pharmaceutical track and trace system was built, launched, and scaled, and what lessons can be drawn from that journey. And we will hear first from Tutku Kazan, who will walk us through Turkey's experiences in building its ITS system. Then Emrah will take us deeper into practical aspects of implementing sterilization and aggregation directly in manufacturing facilities. Okay, just give me a couple of minutes. I will share my secret, and we have a presentation including this information. Just give me 1 second. Okay.
I think it's okay.
Okay. Can you see
Hello,
my
everyone.
screen?
Thank you for being here. Can I start?
Okay.
Okay, it's working. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today, and thank you for giving the time. Most of you, I think, today are already familiar with the concept of the pharmaceutical track and trace, but either from a regulatory, technical, or operational perspective, you all know that, but just make sure we are aligned. And for anyone who may still be unsure about the fundamentals, I would like to take a minute to briefly explain what we mean by track and trace, and the more importantly, why it matters. Let's start with traceability. So pharmaceutical traceability refers to the ability to track and trace the movement of pharmaceutical products throughout the entire supply chain, from manufacturing through distribution and ultimately to the end consumer. So the goal is to establish comprehensive system that enables the identification and verification of each unit or batch of pharmaceutical products at every stage at its journey. So if you ask what is the purpose of the track and trace, the main purpose of track and trace system is to secure the pharmaceutical supply chain against the counterfeit and illegal products, of course. By ensuring that every medicine can be verified, it prevents counterfeit drugs from reaching to patients. Another vital objective is to enhance patient safety, of course, by confirming that drugs are handled under proper conditions throughout storage and transportation. And additionally, companies can benefit from ensuring compliance with various regulatory standards across different countries, allowing them to market their products globally without facing legal issues. And for pharmaceutical serialization, it is the process of uniquely identifying and tracking each unit or package of a pharmaceutical product. In this process, a unique identifier or serial number is assigned to every unit. This information is usually represented by a 2D data matrix. You can see the examples. The code carries important product details such as the GTI and global trade item number, serial number, batch number, and expiration date, and other relevant data. Additionally, the same information is printed in a human-readable format on the packaging to make it easily accessible. So you can see some example of serialized packaging on this slide from European Union, USA, Russia, Brazil, Argentina, and Saudi Arabia. And another concept of track and trace is aggregation. Pharmaceutical aggregation refers to the practice of linking unique serial numbers of individual drug units with the with the unique serial numbers of the higher level of packaging, like cartons, cases, and pallets. Imagine it like a family tree where each individual pill has its own ID, and those IDs are linked to the IDs of their containers, like the child, and to the box, like the parent, and so on up to the supply chain. So how it works with unit level serialization, each individual drug unit, such as a vial, is assigned a unique identifier, typically in the form of a 2D barcode. When these units are grouped into higher level package, a new unique identifier known as the serial shipping container code (SSCC) is assigned to that package. The individual unit IDs are then linked to this new SSCC. This process continues as the packages are organized into larger containers, creating a hierarchy of interconnected identifiers. At any point in the supply chain, by scanning the SSCC code of a higher level of package, you can quickly access information about all the individual units it contains. So to help you visualize more clearly, I have illustrated a typical journey of a pharmaceutical track and trace. You can see it in here. It starts right at the manufacturing stage. Each drug unit is produced, packaged, and serialized with the unique code. After serialization, the individual units are grouped through a process called aggregation, forming bundles, cases, and pallets. The serialized and aggregated products then move to distribution centers, warehouses, where they are logged and tracked. From there, they are sent to wholesalers and subsequently to pharmacies or hospitals. At every point in the supply chain, the movements and actions on the products are recorded and reported, ensuring that every unit's history is traceable. Finally, the medicine reaches the patient and completing the traceability cycle. This end-to-end control not only prevents counterfeit entries, but also improves supply chain efficiency and enhances patient safety, of course. So before we move into the next section, let's take a look at the global picture. This is the map published by GS1, shows the status of pharmaceutical traceability regulations around the world. Not all of them are finalized, of course. Like some countries have already established fully operational systems. Some of them are planning or in pilot phase, or some of them on the draft phase, and many are just beginning to evaluate their options. But what pharmaceutical traceability is becoming a global standard. This map is saying us exactly this. So, but every country takes a different path depending on its needs, its capacity, and its priorities, of course. Now we like to share our own journey in Türkiye. We will show how we moved from facing serious public health and financial risks to building one of the world's first national track and trace systems, and what lessons this process holds for countries that are looking for the same. So let me take you back to Türkiye in early 2000s. Back then, Türkiye had a growing pharmaceutical market, but also a growing problem. Despite having a strong national reimbursement coverage, over 90% of all medicines were paid by the state. The system had no way to confirming whether these medicines are truly reaching the patients. The result is massive reimbursement fraud. Pharmacies were claiming money for medicines never actually sold. Counterfeit and smuggled drugs found their way into the legitimate supply chain, and health authorities couldn't see what was really happening. There was no product level traceability. So Türkiye had to make a choice. Either accept losses and risk public trust, or take bold action to build a safe, visible, and accountable supply chain. In 2010, Türkiye launched something groundbreaking. It's ITS, the Pharmaceutical Track and Trace System. We are calling it ITS. Not just a barcode at the pharmacy, but a full national end-to-end track and trace system that connects every actor in the regulated supply chain. Here's what they built. Every unit of medicine was labeled with a GS1 compliant data matrix. Each movement from manufacturer to wholesaler, pharmacy, or the hospital, or the patient was logged in a centralized government database. Only verified scanned and prescribed medicines will be reimbursed. And this wasn't just a technology. It was a national commitment backed by political will, industry alignment, and phased adaptive implementation. So how the system works in Türkiye? This diagram shows the full workflow of ITS in Türkiye. From the moment the drug is produced, a unique barcode is generated. At each stage, shipping, sale, distribution, dispensing, actors can scan and report the transaction. They will scan and report the transaction. The data is stored centrally, allowing the Ministry of Health to monitor the real-time flow and verify reimbursement accuracy. So the system operates at scale with remarkable efficiency. It processes over 45 million transactions daily, delivers responses within just 0.02 seconds on average. And what has the system delivered? Estimated $1 billion saved annually, mostly by eliminating reimbursement fraud. Falsified drugs are virtually eliminated from the formal supply chain. Recalls are instant and targeted, so no more mass panics. Real-time data for inventory, shortage detection, and policy. Inspectors redeployed from pharmacy audits to GMP compliance, making quality checks smarter. And perhaps most remarkably, what started as a way to save money became a tool to protect lives, ensure drug quality, and strengthen the trust in the health system. So this model is not meant to be copied exactly, but it shows that the functioning nationwide system is possible, even if environments where resources are limited, as long as implementation is phased, inclusive, and adapted to local realities. Countries in Africa can take a similar approach. They can start with essential products or risk-prone areas. They can build a legal and technical foundation, align incentives across public and private stakeholders. They can focus on gradual, scalable implementation. So now that we have seen how a national system like ITS transformed the pharmaceutical landscape in Turkey, you might be wondering, how do we start? What does it take to implement traceability inside of a factory at the production line level? Well, that brings us to the next part of our journey. In the next section, we will talk through what it means to set up a track and trace system inside of a manufacturing facility, what technologies are needed, and how companies can prepare for regulatory compliance and global integration. Let's move from national vision to factory execution. So, Emrah, here we go.
Thanks for your contribution, Tutku. In this section, I will provide you with information on the setup process, key requirements, and the expected outcomes of implementing a traceability system in a manufacturing facility. And now, let's take a closer look at how we set up a track and trace system. We can divide the process into several key stages. First comes preparation and gap analysis. At this stage, we assess the current infrastructure and identify the compliance gaps that need to be addressed. And next, we move on to defining system requirements. Here, we determine both the technical and regulatory needs, things like serialization, aggregation, and IT integration. And the third stage is pilot line implementation, and this is where theory meets practice. We install and test printers, vision systems, and data flow on a single production line before deploying the system across the facility. And then comes validation and compliance. For this one, we perform IQ, OQ, and PQ tests to make sure the system meets all quality and regulatory standards. And this stage also gives confidence that everything is working as it should. And after that, we focus on training and change management, and staff across operations, quality, and IT must be properly trained to ensure a smooth transition and adoption of new processes. And finally, we reach the stage of scale-up and monitoring. Here, the system is expanded to all production lines and continuous monitoring is carried out to track performance and identify areas for improvement. And then, one of the first questions we always get It is how much will it cost? And the honest answer is it depends. Instead of a single number, let me explain you what you're really investing in and why. First, a serialization unit, printer and camera, to apply and verify unique codes. Then, an aggregation station. This is optional but often required by regulations to link units into bundles or cases. And then you will also need vision inspection to catch defects and avoid unreadable codes. A software platform is also essential to manage data, generate reports, and communicate with authorities. In some cases, labeling or temper evidence systems are also needed for security compliance. And finally, integration, connecting your system to ERP or MES for smooth data flow. Each of these can be manual, semi-automatic, or fully automated, depending on your scale and budget. But here's the good news. You don't need to do everything at once, and you can start small, gain experience, and grow your system step by step. And that's how you build traceability the smart way. And the second most asked question we always get is, how long will this take? And here is a realistic timeline if you're starting from scratch. You can count as the planning and assessments for 2 to 4 weeks, and procurement and delivery from 8 weeks to 10 weeks, and also installation and integration you can count as 2 to 3 weeks, and validation for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and training and test runs also takes 1 to 2 weeks, and go live and monitoring takes around a week. So in total you need 4 to 6 months per packaging line. But again, it depends on the complexity of the site and the software system for sure. And now let's talk about the main challenges manufacturers face when implementing a traceability system, because this part is absolutely critical. First, there is the issue of high initial investment cost. Yes, implementation can be expensive, but it's important to consider the return on investment. The savings from preventing counterfeit and fraudulent products often outweigh the initial setup cost. Integration with existing ERP or MES systems, this can be also complex, which is why starting with a pilot project is so valuable. It allows you to test data flow, fix issues early, and validate data consistency at every level. The third challenge is training operators and ensuring adoption. People need to understand why this system matters. That means clear and continuous communication, hands-on simulations with the relevant teams, and KPI tracking to measure progress and performance. And finally, data security and connectivity with national databases. This requires strong IT governance, encryption, redundant servers, and continuous monitoring. Regular audits and stress tests are essential to keep the system reliable and compliant. And overcoming these challenges isn't easy, but with a structured approach, the benefits of a fully traceable manufacturing environment far outweigh the difficulties. And then, will it pay off? Let's talk about return on investment, because this isn't just a compliance expense. A properly implemented traceability system delivers ROI in 3 ways. The first one is risk reduction. It prevents products recalls due to bad or unreadable codes, protects your brand from counterfeit association, and which is very important. And it avoids regulatory penalties or disqualification. And secondly, market access. This traceability systems enables exports to countries with strict traceability requirements. And it also builds trust with regulators and customers and meets GMP and serialization audit expectations. And then the operational efficiency is the other important thing. You can make faster product recalls, you can reduce manual recording, and also accurate inventory management via aggregation. Based on general industry estimates, companies often expect a payback in 3 to 7 years, assuming moderate scale and medium levels of risk. But in a high-risk environment, for example, the vulnerable to counterfeit or reimbursement fraud, a payback can occur faster. In short, the perfect traceability system protects your business, it opens you to new markets, and improves your internal process control. And in conclusion, track and trace systems require significant initial investment, but ROI is strong in the long run. It ensures patient safety, compliance, and supply chain transparency. And it also provides measurable benefits, fraud prevention, efficiency, and cost saving. And also not just regulatory compliance, it is also very strategic business advantage. And if I could leave you with one message at last, you don't need to have a perfect system on day one. You just need to get started with the right mindset, the right tools, and a realistic roadmap. And this is my end of line at the moment. And please, Berkay, continue with the questions.
Okay, thank you both for detailed overview. Now I would like to ask a few questions that may be on the minds of many in the audience. So the first question is coming for Tutku, and my question is, how is data security ensured in a national system like Turkey's?
Okay, thank you, Berkay. Thank you for your question, and thank you, Emrah, for your insights. So in Turkey's IT system, data security was a core consideration from day one, because the system handles real-time pharmaceutical product movements across the entire country. So all serialization and transaction data is stored on government controlled servers managed by the Ministry of Health. This central infrastructure is protected through multi-layered security measures, including user authentication and role-based access, audit trails, and real-time monitoring of system activity. Importantly, patient data is not stored. In the system, patient data is not stored. ITS only tracks the movement of the products, not personal medicational information, which helps maintain the compliance with privacy regulations, of course.
Okay, thank you for explanation. And the second question is for the Emrah, actually. And what can be the biggest technical challenge during the ITS implementation at the factory level?
At the factory level, the biggest technical challenge is usually integration and line compatibility. Many manufacturers, especially those with older or non-standard equipment, face difficulties in adapting serialization printers, cameras, and scanners into their existing lines. And the key issues include ensuring print quality at high speeds, avoiding barcode misreads or code duplication, and maintaining aggregation accuracy, especially during manual handling. To address this, companies need to select modular and scalable equipment, perform pilot runs, and ensure proper calibration of vision systems. Also, IT systems, especially ERP and MES platforms, must be able to communicate with serialization software, which often requires custom integration.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And the next question is for Mrs. Nuran, Idris. And Nuran, Idris, in your opinion, how will track and trace systems evolve in Africa in 5 years?
Thank you, Berkay, for that question, and of course, thank you, my colleagues Tutku and Emrah, for your presentations. So anticipating the future is not always the easier task to do, because again, a lot of factors are at play. What I can share though is a statement that's based mostly on wishful thinking, or that's also based on a lot of recommendations and suggestions and conversations around the table. So Africa, as you know, is formed by 55 countries, and some are very big and some are very small, and some, of course, are in the middle. So one of the biggest opportunities that I think exists in Africa, and I think many colleagues will also agree with me, is on the power of regional aggregation. So instead of having from 55 countries, 55 regulations or 55 systems or 55 whatever it is it possible then to have, let's say, one regional system or two or three or whatever, just to demonstrate the countries working together, leveraging their resources, leveraging their expertise, leveraging their opportunities and whatnot. I think that is also ties very well with the porous nature of any country right now. I think it's very easy to walk from one border to another. So I think the case for regional harmonization and regional, aggregation is very big. While there isn't anything specific that I can point to right now, aside from the regional bodies, of course, to say that this is a future reality, but it's something that makes the most sense. I mean, I think, Emrah, when you were talking, you talked a bit about cost and time and all of these things. And obviously that is something that would benefit a lot from, many 2 or 3 countries getting together and leveraging their resources.
Okay, thank you for your explanation, detailed explanation actually. And the next question is for the Tutku. How did the private sector, especially pharmacies and small manufacturers, react to the system initially?
Okay, they reacted badly. So naturally, there was some resistance in the early phases, especially from pharmacies, small manufacturers, and distributors, of course. Their concerns were mostly about the cost of the implementation, the change in workflow, and the fear of increased oversight. So Türkiye managed this transition by using a phased rollout strategy, starting with the pilot regions and gradually expanding. The Ministry of Health provided clear guidance, technical documentations, and training. Over time, as stakeholders began to see the operational benefits, such as few fake products, easier inventory controls, and faster reimbursements validation, their perception shifted from resistance to acceptance and even support. Today, over 40,000 stakeholders, including pharmacies and manufacturers, are active users of the system.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And the next question is for Emrah. First, Emrah, how was the use of ITS made mandatory across the country?
Thank you, Berkay. ITS became mandatory in Türkiye through a combination of regulatory enforcement and also system dependency. First, the Ministry of Health issued regulations requiring all manufacturers, wholesalers, and pharmacies to report their transactions to the ITS platform. And secondly, and more importantly, ITS was directly linked to the reimbursement system. And that means a pharmacy could not receive reimbursement unless the product sale was logged in ITS. And a wholesaler couldn't transfer its stock unless the aggregation was submitted to the ITS system. And this created a compliance-based incentive. Using ITS wasn't just a legal requirement, it became also an operationally unavoidable thing. And over time, system usage became routine, and now it's fully embedded into day-to-day operation across the entire supply chain.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And the last question is for Mrs. Nuran. And my question is, how do GS1 standards contribute to fight against counterfeit medicines and medical products?
Thank you so much for your question, Berkay. So within the GS1 standards, what they do is really provide the mechanisms for uniquely identifying various entities in the supply chain. So in the case of counterfeit medications, one of the main things that you need to identify is the medicine, right? So the GS1 standards enable you to uniquely identify that product or trade item wherever you are in the supply chain. So whether that product is being generated or manufactured and identified in Turkey or in Turkey, or if it is being managed and identified in Kenya, where I am right now, it really does not matter. Within the GS1 standards, that unique identification provides kind of a standardized ways to identify that product. And as we know, once you have unique identification, the possibilities are really endless. There's so many ways that you could use that unique identification to build your systems, to facilitate information about that product, and to do all these other things that would enable unique identification, that will enable, in this particular case, track and trace and addressing counterfeit medications. What I do want to insist on, again, it's because of a misconception that I've been hearing around as well, is that having that unique identification and having that unique identification and a data matrix or any type of barcode on a product is one step you have to have many other components, as was also shared by our colleagues from VISIOTT. I mean, Emrah and Tutku, you shared a lot about how you've done it in Turkey. As you could see, I'm speaking to the audience now. As you could see, there are many different bits and pieces that came together to make it possible. So we should move away from thinking that GS1 is like the one solution that will do everything. Rather, it is an important component, an important building block that can open up multiple other possibilities. And I hand back over to you, Berkay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all. And those were my only questions. And actually, we have so many questions right now. And so I will share these questions with you. Okay. And if you want, we can start with our first question. And the first question, I think Tutku can give some answers against this question. So the question is, Ayat Sherif question, is the track and trace system applied in Turkey for medical devices as well, or only for pharmaceuticals?
Can I get the question?
Okay, is the track and trace system applied in Turkey for medical devices as well, or only for pharmaceuticals?
Both of them, for medical devices as well.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And I would like to continue with another question. The question came from Hashim Ubala Yusufu, and probably this question for Emrah. And how does the cost of implementation affect access?
Thanks for the question. The cost of implementation can limit access in two ways. Firstly, they may discourage smaller manufacturers from compliance, and they can increase medicine prices. And to avoid this, regulators should support these manufacturers through subsidized phased implementation, maybe in some country that already did, and or shared digital infrastructure, ensuring safety improvements and don't come at the cost of accessibility.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And I would like to continue with another question too. And I think the question for Tutku, because it's including some information about the Turkish pharma companies. So the question is coming from a manufacturer perspective. What were the main challenges Turkish pharma companies faced during the sterilization rollout, and how might African manufacturers prepare to overcome similar barriers?
Okay, thank you for the question, Ryan El-Haj, I think.
Yes.
Yes, great question. In Turkey, the main challenges for manufacturers were integrating new hardware into the existing lines. That was one of them, and ensuring the print and scan quality at high speed, because we are big manufacturers. It was a challenge, and training staff to manage the new workflows, of course. And African manufacturers can prepare by starting with pilot lines, as I mentioned in the presentation, choosing modular scalable systems, and investing early in hands-on training for production teams.
And I would like to ask the same question to Mrs. Nuran. What do you think about this? What do you think about it, actually? We would like to hear your opinion right now.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I would also kind of go back to what Emrah shared earlier about the phased implementation. I think that is the surest way to really navigate the cost, especially for local manufacturers, because the cost is there and the cost can be high, especially if some companies do not have anything at all. But really working with the governments, and I think so far, of all the regulations that I've seen have been published, a lot of them are very have some lenience for especially local manufacturers. So really tap into those, develop a plan, phased implementation plan, communicate this with the regulator that you're supplying to. And in many cases, I again, based on experience, they're very open to giving the local manufacturers especially a bit more time, because again, I think in many of these African countries, they have I think the correct name is buy local, So there is an incentive, a policy that already exists to incentivize local production and local manufacturing. So tap into those resources and policies and leverage this as a growth as well. And I think Emrah or Tutku, one of you, I can't remember who was talking about this. If you really think about this more also intrinsically on what having track and trace does for your product, for your product as a manufacturer, looking at it at other ways that you could generate value from doing this would also help with getting the necessary funding and buy-in to keep the conversation going.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And I would like to continue with you, Mrs. Nuran. And so the question is there any room of collaboration with other African local health authorities?
Yes, so there are, thank you. I see that question from Musa. So it's a really good question. And so there are many platforms that already exist right now that are fostering the conversations within the countries through, for instance, right now, the African Union is setting up a technical working group through Audanepad. And in it, they're really trying to see how can they have a bit more conversations locally, regionally, to share best practices. But also, I know, again, the regulators have multiple other fora that they meet together. I think there's the African Medicines Agency coming up as well that also brings a lot of these regulators, and many of them are really talking about these ones. So Musa, I would invite you as well to reach out again to the regulator. I mean, or of course to me. I think you will have my contact information, and I'm happy to get you in touch with another regulator who can provide more input. But I would say there's definitely already many platforms that exist, and many more that are also coming up given the developments in the region. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for answering. And one more question in here. And does the unique identifier have to be supplied by GS1 only, or are there other globally recognized suppliers for GLNs and GTINs, I think? And probably we can hear your voice, for Emrah or I don't know.
Okay,
Who's
I
gonna be
can answer.
volunteer?
I can
Okay.
hear Emrah's voice, so I can answer that. Great question again. Yeah. So GS1 is currently the only globally recognized organization, as far as I know, that issues GTINs and GLNs, the global location numbers, I think. And these identifiers are part of the GS1 global standard system, which ensures interoperability across countries and supply chains. If you want the codes to be recognized by regulations, supply chain partners, and international platforms, they need to follow the standards. And that means getting them through your local GS1 member organization is the best solution for you.
Okay, I keep the
I
longest
think
question.
maybe Nuran can add something to that question.
Yeah, no,
that
no.
answer.
I wanted to hear what you had to say first, Tutku, before I I chimed in. So thank you. It's good to see we're definitely aligned there, and I think that I agree fully with what Tutku said. I think when you think about pharmaceutical space, uniquely identifying products, especially in a global space, because you could identify the product as you wish. It doesn't matter, but especially if you want your product to cross borders and to have a way that it can be uniquely recognized within the global system of standards, then GS1 is the one that is there. And just to throw one statistics at you, I think it was also shared earlier by Tutku in a slide. We have over 70 countries around the world now that are using the GS1, the GTIN, to uniquely identify products as part of the track and trace system. So that I think also tells you a little bit more about how how popularly used the GS1 standards are. Thank you.
Okay, and we have two more questions right now. And so the question is, I think, for Tutku. Thank you for sharing Turkey's experiences, very insightful, buy-in and rapid compliance uptake of TMT, considering the potential investment for implementation. Manufacturers may display resistance in the presentation. You mentioned industry incentives were provided. Can you provide examples of such incentives which regulators or government can explore?
Okay, great question, and thank you for that. Yes, you're absolutely right. The initial resistance from manufacturers is very common, especially when the investment seems really high. In Turkey, one of the key incentives was linking the system directly to reimbursement. It was that, and for example, pharmacies couldn't get paid unless they reported sales through the ITS system. So wholesalers couldn't transfer ownership without scanning and submitting the data. So compliance became part of the business process, not just a legal obligation. Also, during the early stages, the government provided clear deadlines, training sessions, and phased implementation, which gave companies time to prepare. And so regulators as well can explore similar ideas maybe. Like linking it to reimbursement, licensing, or export approvals, or something like that, or offering tax breaks maybe, or prioritizing fast track approvals for compliant companies. That kind of stuff maybe can be applicable for the other countries. Thank you for the question again. Great question.
Thank you for your answer. And the last question, I would like to get all of the answers from all of the speakers in this session. And so the question is coming, if you would like to prefer, Emrah can start. And my question is, how can we transfer our pharma field to AI field in the master degree?
Actually, this question is a little very new to us, because transforming the pharmaceutical background into the AI field through master degree is a very difficult thing, as in our experience at the moment. And for that, it is important to choose the right type of master's degree. And it needs to build your AI team or AI foundation, and it requires a very good IT team to build this one. And it's also connects AI to your pharmaceutical applications, and maybe it is better to start on small projects to work on it and choose the right program.
Okay.
Question is very futuristic, so not our expertise, but we will try to answer it as far as we can. So maybe Sanjana Alay can start like by choosing a master's program that combines AI with healthcare or life sciences, like health informatics, bioinformatics, or something like that, or AI in medicine. Then can build technical skills like data analysis, machine learning through online courses. Or if you don't need to leave the pharma field, you can apply AI to solve the pharma problems, which is a growing and in demand field as far as I know. So I can answer this. If I understand this question correctly, I can answer it like this.
And I have nothing to add. I think Emrah answered one for the team. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, right now there's no question, any further question right now. So thank you all for your participation today, and the special thanks to our speakers, Mrs. Nuran, Idris, Tutku, Kazan, and Emrah for the insightful contributions. We hope the season gave you a clearer understanding of the possibilities and the priorities around pharmaceutical traceability in Africa. And right now, actually, I would like to give the first to Anna. Maybe she would like to say something before close this session.
Yes, thank you so much, Berkay. I guess this brings a close to our session for today's webinar. And just behalf of the AfriSummit team, I'd like to extend our heartfelt thank you to all of you as our speakers and for all of our audience members for joining and contributing to the discussion with the questions. It made it very engaging and felt like a back and forth. And a special appreciation to the VISIOTT TPS and for their partnership and continued commitment for advancing traceability and supply chain transparency across regions. So we hope that you've enjoyed today's conversation. And we would also like to invite you to continue this dialogue and be part of the movement for a healthier Africa. And you can join us at AfriSummit between the 2nd and the 5th of November, whether that's virtually or in person, to connect and collaborate further. You can register for AfriSummit by visiting our website. I've just entered a link into the chat for everyone to see. And just to end things off, thank you all so much. And we look forward to seeing you, Cairo, Egypt.